Good morning. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Victor. So I wanted to talk today about one aspect of the Eightfold Path, the Buddha's kind of key form for developing our spiritual awakening. The path is said to have three elements. It's often broken down into these three elements. So that are called Sila, Samadhi, and Panya. Sila is the ethical or moral element. Samadhi is the meditative element. Panya is the wisdom element. Well, Samadhi, the elements that are part of Samadhi are effort, mindfulness, and concentration. And the wisdom elements are right view and right intention. And in Western Buddhism, there's often an emphasis on the meditative and wisdom elements of the path, and somewhat a little less emphasis on the Sila part. And yet, as the Buddha describes the path, it's the Sila that's the foundation for the development of the meditative and wisdom elements of the path. So we neglect them at our peril. And so the three elements that are part of Sila are right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Right action refers to the five precepts, which are the real moral underpinning of Buddhism and really familiar to pretty much all the great religions. So we understand Sila and morality to be have social implications and you could say karmic implications. But in the Eightfold Path, right speech, right action, and right livelihood have a special role. And I want to read from Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's one of the great translators, modern translators of the ancient texts. He says, though the principles laid down in this section of the Eightfold Path, the Sila section, restrain immoral actions and promote good conduct, their ultimate purpose is not so much ethical as spiritual. They are not prescribed merely as guides to action, but primarily as aids to mental purification. And as a necessary measure for human well-being, ethics has its own justification in the Buddha's teachings, and its importance cannot be underrated. But in the special context of the Noble Eightfold Path, ethical principles are subordinate to the path's governing goal, final deliverance from suffering. So this is I find this an intriguing line of thought that while there's an ethical and kind of karmic impact, that it's the mental purification that's vital. And so just to consider what this means, for instance, around right speech. We all know what it feels like when we get angry, when we speak harshly, and what it does to the mind. And if you sit down and try to meditate after yelling at someone, you'll feel the disturbance in the mind. So this is what we're talking about how things like right speech influence the mental state. They aren't separate from it. Right action, the precepts include, well, I'm going to actually read you the one of the ways that the precepts are translated. that I undertake the training precept to refrain from taking the life of any creature. So just the phrasing is very important, that we undertake a training. The precepts in Buddhism aren't considered to be commandments. There are effects. The law of karma says there are effects when we take actions. But it's not associated with the sort of sense of good and evil. Rather, just this is what happens. And the implication when it says, I undertake the training precept, is that we will fail at times. So in a sense, we could say that forgiveness is built into the precepts. So the 5 precepts: I undertake the training precept to refrain from taking the life of any creature. I undertake the training precept to refrain from taking that which is not given. I undertake the training precept to refrain from sexual misconduct. I undertake the training precept to refrain from false and harmful speech. I undertake the training precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs, which lead to heedlessness. So we can see that these are, common moral guidelines. And as Bhikkhu Bodhi says, they have broad social meaning and effects. But in the Eightfold Path, what we're particularly interested in is how breaking these precepts or following them affects our mental states. When we steal, how that feels. The remorse, the guilt, the fear of being caught. It makes it very difficult to meditate or to gain clarity in the mind. When we harm someone sexually, when we lie, when we kill. I was reflecting this morning about the terrible effects that so many soldiers feel after being at war. And while we accept that it's not a crime to kill in war, nonetheless they experience the terrible karmic effects of it, the trauma. So that even to kill in self-defense has a traumatic impact on the mind, on the heart and mind. As a recovering alcoholic myself, the 5th precept, to refrain from intoxicating drink and drugs, has particular relevance. I actually used to meditate before I got sober, and I would actually at times try to meditate when I was intoxicated. It was not effective, I can tell you. So the precepts have this practical purpose in the path. There's certainly the encouragement in Buddhism to live a life of kindness and ethics and integrity because of its worldly implications. But we could say, in a sense, on a selfish level, for our own serenity, following the precepts is the work that we need to do, not something that we do in order to be good or to be seen as some particularly holy person, but really for our own peace and for our own serenity. So I hope those words are of benefit. Thank you.